the kind of heartbreak that stops you in your tracks, the kind you don't expect, and when it hits, it's like the world tilts. Garrison Brown, the warm-hearted, fiercely independent son of Janelle and Kody Brown, is gone. Just 25 years old. A life that still had so much light to give, suddenly dimmed. Fans of Sister Wives were hit with the shocking, devastating news this season. It wasn't just another family disagreement or drama over property lines. This was real. This was irreversible. And this time, it wasn't just about reality TV, it was about real grief, real pain, and a real son no longer here. Hi friends, I'm Sophia, and welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives Tales. If you've been following the show, you know how close the Brown family has been to the edge for years now, but nothing could prepare us for this. Please make sure to subscribe for more honest and emotional commentary, and share your thoughts in the comments. I really want to know how you felt watching this unfold. When the news of Garrison's passing broke, it wasn't through a carefully edited scene or a confessional. It was through raw emotion, tears, silence, and a grief that couldn't be scripted. For those of us who followed Sister Wives from the beginning, we watched Garrison grow up, from a shy little boy playing in the background of chaotic family scenes to a strong, passionate young man who stepped away from the family's dysfunction to create a life of his own. He was never the loudest voice in the room, but he was steady, kind, the kind of person who rescued senior cats when no one else would, the kind of son who texted his mom every single day, sometimes just to check in, sometimes just to say, "I love you." So how did we get here? How did someone so gentle and full of heart end up in a place so dark that he saw no other way out? Season 19 of Sister Wives hit different. It wasn't just about plural marriage or Christine's freedom journey or Robyn's tears anymore. It became a mirror, reflecting something much heavier. Garrison's death cast a long, painful shadow across every storyline. The show, which once promised viewers a peek into an unconventional lifestyle, suddenly became a space where very real pain lived. And for Janelle, Garrison's mom, that pain wasn't something you could cut away to commercial. Janelle's grief has been one of the hardest things to watch this season. You can feel it in every word she speaks, in every pause between her sentences. She's always been the practical one, the steady one, the one who kept things moving no matter what chaos was spinning around her. But in these episodes, she's something else, a mother who's lost her son. And it's not just the loss, it's the way she talks about the days leading up to it. The texts, the phone calls, the worry she felt but didn't know how deep it really ran. You can tell she's been replaying those moments in her mind, wondering what she missed, what she could have done. And fans, we're grieving with her. Because Garrison wasn't just another Brown kid to us. He represented something. He was the quiet rebellion, the gentle defiance. He was the one who didn't scream but still said, "No, this isn't right." Especially in the way he stood up to Kody in the last few seasons. We all saw it, when he and Gabriel felt rejected during the pandemic, when Kody's rules pushed them further away, when their calls and messages went unanswered. There was so much silence between father and sons, and that silence grew louder with every episode. Now, that silence is permanent. And it's crushing. This isn't one of those reality TV stories that ends with a reunion or a new marriage. This is different. This is a real loss, and it's shaking not just the Brown family, but the entire Sister Wives fanbase to its core. People who've watched for over a decade, people who've laughed and cried and criticized the choices these adults made. All of us felt the gut punch when we heard the news about Garrison. Because no matter how you felt about the family dynamics, one thing was clear. Garrison was a good soul. He loved his cats, he loved his mom, he served his country, he worked hard, and even when things got messy with his dad, he still tried. He still showed up when he could, so here we are, in a season that none of us were ready for. Watching a mother break on camera, watching siblings hold each other a little closer, watching a community rally around Janelle, not because she's a reality star, but because she's a mom, and this is every parent's worst nightmare. As this story continues to unfold in season 19, we're not just watching for the drama anymore. We're watching for the moments of truth, for the scenes that show us who really showed up, who really cared, who honored Garrison, and who didn't. And sadly, those lines are becoming clearer than ever. In the next part, we'll talk about who Garrison truly was outside the lens of TLC. A son, a soldier, an animal lover, and the kind of person whose compassion still ripples through a community trying to keep his memory alive. He wasn't just a cast member, he wasn't just one of the kids. Garrison Brown had depth, and for those who watched closely, you could see it in the quiet way he carried himself. In the little glimpses TLC allowed over the years, it became clear he was thoughtful, loyal, and deeply empathetic. But like many of the Brown children, Garrison often existed in the background while the adults played out their conflicts on center stage. And maybe that's part of why his story hurts so much now, because now we realize just how much more there was to him than what the cameras ever really showed. Longtime viewers remember him as a teenager who didn't shy away from calling things as he saw them. Whether it was pushing back on his father's strict pandemic rules or questioning why things were always about Robyn's kids, Garrison had a quiet courage. He didn't scream. He didn't play into the drama. But when he did speak, you listened, especially when it came to how he was being treated by Kody. Let's talk about that, because it's something that weighs heavy in so many of our hearts watching this season. Garrison's final years were marked by a growing distance from his father, and it wasn't subtle. In the earlier seasons, there was still some warmth, some effort. But then COVID hit, and everything changed. Kody's rigid family rules caused a massive rift. Janelle was caught in the middle, trying to juggle loyalty to Kody with the very real emotional needs of her sons. And Garrison? He went from being a son seeking connection to someone completely pushed away. When he and Gabriel tried to talk to Kody, when they wanted answers about why they were being left out, why their dad wasn't returning calls, what did they get? Silence, excuses, defensiveness. It was heartbreaking. One of the most emotional scenes came when Gabriel cried during a confessional, saying he had called his dad on his birthday and Kody didn't even remember. And Garrison, though he didn't shed tears on camera, carried that same pain. It's not just about parental neglect, it's about the emotional damage that can come from feeling disposable, replaceable. And fans noticed. People started to speak out online, calling out Kody's absence, pointing out how Garrison was being left behind while Robyn's kids seemed to be held closer than ever. And that sentiment didn't go away. It only grew louder after Garrison's passing. Because here's the truth. Garrison was doing everything he could to build a meaningful life. He bought his own house, he served in the National Guard, he worked hard, and he filled his home with something most people wouldn't expect. Cats. Lots of them. Especially the ones nobody else wanted. Senior cats. Sick cats. Cats with trauma or special needs. The forgotten ones. And he didn't do it for attention. He did it because he had a heart that couldn't stand to see anything abandoned. The Flagstaff Humane Society later revealed just how involved he was, donating time, money, and supplies, all without making a big deal out of it. That was Garrison. No fanfare, just action, just kindness. And that kindness didn't end with his death. After the news broke, donations started pouring into the shelter in his name. People who'd never met him were moved to act because of the love he showed to animals. His compassion had a ripple effect. He was gone. But somehow, he was still saving lives. And then we saw it. Janelle's emotional visit to the shelter. You could see it in her face. The pain, the pride, the ache that doesn't go away. She walked through those halls knowing her son used to be there, helping, knowing the animals remembered him in their own way. It was one of the most powerful moments on the show because it wasn't about drama. It wasn't about ratings. It was a mother grieving, a mother honoring the best parts of her son in the most beautiful, quiet way. But not everyone handled his memory with that same care. And that's where things start to get complicated. And frankly, upsetting. There's a moment in the new season that struck a nerve with just about everyone watching. During a scene at Robyn and Kody's house, we learned something that feels completely out of step with the emotional weight of Garrison's loss. His photo, instead of being displayed inside, was sitting in a box in the garage. That's right, in a box. In storage, not framed on the wall, not placed on the mantle with candles and flowers, just put away. And for many viewers, that moment confirmed what they'd long suspected, that some members of the family had emotionally detached from Garrison long before his passing, that maybe this wasn't about grief at all for them, but optics. And yes, I said it. Because how else do you explain that choice? How do you store your son's photo like that and then go on national television to talk about healing and forgiveness? It felt disrespectful, cold, like a slap in the face to Janelle, who has done nothing but carry herself with grace through the darkest days of her life. While she's been showing up for Garrison, building a legacy in his name, others are treating him like an afterthought, and fans aren't keeping quiet about it either. Social media has been flooded with posts calling out Kody and Robyn, questioning why Garrison wasn't honored properly, why the show even aired certain scenes without considering how they'd land, with people still mourning him. The outrage has been loud, and honestly, it should be. Because this isn't just about a TV family anymore. It's about accountability. It's about mental health. It's about how we talk about grief and how we treat the people we lose. Garrison's death didn't need to become a storyline, but if it is going to be on the show, it should be treated with care, with intention, and above all, with respect. What hurts the most is knowing that Garrison didn't feel the support he needed when he was alive. That even with a mom like Janelle, loving, present, always trying, he still struggled in silence. That's what makes mental health so hard to talk about. Because it doesn't always make sense. You can have a home, a job, friends, and still feel like you're drowning. Janelle shared in one episode how close they were, how they texted all the time, how nothing seemed out of the ordinary. And that's what makes it so terrifying. Because if it can happen to someone like Garrison, someone who seemed strong, who was loved, who was doing good in the world, it can happen to anyone. That's why his story matters. Not just because he was part of a famous family, but because he was real, because he struggled, and because now maybe more people will pay attention to the quiet signs. Maybe more people will check in with the strong ones, the independent ones, the ones who never ask for help, and maybe, just maybe, the show will finally start doing what it should have done all along, telling the truth. Not just the polished, produced version, but the real version, the version where grief is messy, where family bonds are tested, where love is shown not just in words, but in actions. In the next act, we'll look more closely at how Garrison's memory is being honored and how fans and the animal rescue community have taken it upon themselves to carry forward the love he gave so freely. And this is where it starts to feel bigger than a reality show, bigger than even the Brown family. Because while Sister Wives has always been about family dynamics, choices, and consequences, what's happening now with Garrison's legacy feels different. It feels like the audience has picked up the pieces that others dropped. It's the viewers, the fans, and even strangers who are choosing to remember him not for how he died, but for how he lived. It's truly something to witness. People all over the country, some who never missed an episode of Sister Wives, and others who just caught wind of the tragedy, rallying around the Flagstaff Humane Society. In the days following Garrison's death, donations flooded in. Money, food, blankets, cat supplies, and not in small amounts. People gave because of Garrison. They gave because his story, his love for animals, touched something in them. It was real, it was pure, and the shelter itself didn't stay silent. They came forward and shared what many viewers never knew. Garrison had been quietly helping them for years. He wasn't there for the cameras. He wasn't there for praise. He was just there, consistently, compassionately, helping the senior cats, the sick ones, the ones that were overlooked again and again. The shelter honored him with a memorial photo wall and shared heartfelt messages about the impact he made. He may not have had a voice on the show the way some of the adults did, but in the real world, he left his mark. Then came Janelle. In one of the most emotionally raw scenes we've seen from Sister Wives in recent years, she walked into that shelter. She didn't need to say much. You could see the grief etched in every expression, every step she took. But she wasn't just grieving. She was remembering. She was choosing to step into the world her son loved so deeply, to see the animals he cared for, to meet the people who worked alongside him. It was quiet. It was simple. And yet, it said more than any confessional ever could. And let me tell you, friends, fans felt that. People were crying watching that scene. Not because it was dramatic, not because of any editing tricks, but because it was real. It was a moment of truth in a show that too often glosses over the hard stuff. This wasn't about plural marriage or jealousy or moving houses. This was about love, about loss, and about a mother's unshakable bond with her son. But of course, we can't talk about how Garrison is being honored without also talking about the controversy, and yes, there is plenty of it. Because while Janelle is honoring her son in beautiful and heartfelt ways, not everyone seems to be on the same page. Fans have been loud, rightfully loud, about what they see as a lack of public acknowledgement from Kody and Robyn. And the scene with Garrison's photo in the garage, that was a breaking point for so many viewers. It wasn't just what was said, it was what wasn't. There was no visible moment of reflection, no tears, no deep sorrow, just a casual mention, like it was an afterthought, like it wasn't their loss to carry. And sure, people grieve differently. That's a fair point. But when you contrast that cold storage box with Janelle's visit to the shelter or the outpouring of love online, the difference is jarring, painful, almost too painful to excuse. Because here's the thing, Garrison may not have been raised solely by Kody, but he was still his son, a son who tried to reconnect, a son who felt pushed away, a son who, in his final year of life, seemed to be working through heartbreak while trying to build something meaningful. And yet, on the show, there seems to be more concern about how Kody feels as a father being cut out than there is acknowledgement of the pain his absence caused. Even in moments when Robyn talks about Garrison's passing, it feels removed, like they're talking about someone they didn't really know. And for many viewers, that just doesn't sit right. It's not just about the photo in the garage. It's about how someone's legacy is shaped by the people who claim to love them. And when that love feels conditional, or convenient for TV, that's when the audience starts calling foul. Fans have filled comment sections, subreddits, and video threads with one common message. Janelle is carrying this grief with grace, while others are barely showing up. And that message, it's loud, it's persistent, and it's true. Because here's what's happening right now. Garrison's legacy is growing, not because of the show, but in spite of it. Not because of Kody's leadership, but because of Janelle's heartbreak, and most of all, because of the people who saw Garrison for who he really was. This isn't just a storyline for TLC anymore. It's a movement of remembrance, a demand for accountability, a refusal to let another human being, especially one who gave so much, be reduced to a plot twist. Garrison's legacy now lives in the form of donations helping save animals, in the Instagram tributes from fellow animal lovers, in the way fans speak about him, not as a footnote, but as the soul of the Brown children who tried to bring reason and warmth to a family often engulfed in chaos. And most of all, it lives in Janelle. In every moment she shows up, every time she shares a memory or visits that shelter or simply speaks his name with love, she is making sure the world doesn't forget. She is the heartbeat of this story now. In the next act, we'll look closely at how this tragedy is changing the way fans see the show, and what it means for the future of Sister Wives. Because once you've seen behind the curtain, once you've felt the weight of real grief, the game of reality TV can never be the same. And here's where everything shifts. Because what started as a family docuseries, something about plural marriage, shared parenting, balancing relationships, has now taken a sharp, painful turn. Garrison's death didn't just shake the Brown family, it's shifted how the audience views everything about this show. The curtain has been pulled back, and it's exposing more than anyone probably expected. Fans are asking harder questions now, about production, about intention, about exploitation. And honestly, it's valid, because there's a fine line between documenting real life and capitalizing on tragedy. And in this case, that line feels blurred, maybe even crossed. You can feel it in the way viewers talk online now. Before, there were arguments about who was right or wrong in a marriage dispute, who was being unreasonable, who should move, who deserved more time. But now, it's more serious. People are stepping back and asking, what kind of environment allowed someone like Garrison to fall through the cracks? And let's be clear, no one is blaming the show for Garrison's passing. Mental health is layered, it's quiet, it's complicated, but what is being criticized is how the aftermath is being handled. There's a sense, an uncomfortable one, that Garrison's death is being used to create an emotional arc. And the editing choices, The dramatic pauses, the selective interviews, the lack of raw, consistent grieving scenes from everyone, it all feels off. It doesn't feel like honoring him. It feels like repackaging pain for ratings. And that's what has fans so upset. Because this isn't just about losing Garrison, it's about what's being done with that loss, how it's being framed, who is speaking up, and who's staying quiet. Look at Janelle. Her grief is raw, but it's not performative. When she talks about Garrison, she gets emotional. Yes, but it's from a place of love. It's not scripted. She's not trying to get a moment. She's simply a mother navigating the worst thing imaginable. And viewers see that. They feel it. They trust it. Now contrast that with Kody. We've watched his relationship with Garrison break down over the past few seasons. The tension, the disapproval, the estrangement. Garrison pushed back during COVID. He challenged his dad. He wanted to live independently, make his own choices. And instead of working through that, Kody distanced himself and even blamed Garrison for being disrespectful. So now, when the show cuts to Kody speaking about his late son, it rings hollow. Fans aren't just sad, they're angry. They remember the scenes, they remember the words, and they remember how quickly the door seemed to close on that relationship. And then there's Robyn. Viewers haven't forgotten the confessional where she tearfully talked about the boys not being part of their lives. But what they also noticed? The shift in focus. It was about how she felt, about how they were being mean to her. There was a noticeable absence of ownership, or compassion, or understanding that this wasn't about her. This was about a son who no longer felt safe, or wanted, or welcome. That's why the garage scene hit so hard. Garrison's photo, stored in a box in a dimly lit storage space, it wasn't just a visual, it was a metaphor for how some people in that family seemed to have emotionally packed him away long before the rest of the world even knew something was wrong, and viewers weren't quiet about it. Comment sections exploded. Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, wherever fans could speak, they did. And the message was loud: this is not okay. You don't put someone's memory in a box. You don't minimize their life. You don't treat them like a footnote. People were heartbroken, yes, but also furious. Because Garrison wasn't just someone who showed up in a few episodes. He was a whole human being, with humor, with heart, with struggles, and with dreams. And the way he's being remembered or ignored tells the audience everything they need to know about who actually saw him. And this isn't just about the Brown family anymore. It's about reality TV as a whole. It's about how production companies choose to shape a story, what they choose to leave in, what they cut, what they emphasize. Because for years, fans bought into the narrative TLC was selling. This was a family, flawed but loving, figuring it out together. But now, that image is cracking. Garrison's passing has forced people to rewatch episodes through a new lens, to rethink those tense conversations, to question the editing, to wonder if the things they once brushed off were actually red flags. There's a growing awareness now, an awakening, that maybe the real tragedy here isn't just the loss of Garrison, but the way his pain was invisible to so many until it was too late. And now, the people who should be leading with empathy and remembrance seem more focused on managing image than honoring his heart. But again, Janelle stands apart, quietly, strongly. Her actions speak louder than any confessional could. She didn't need to post 100 pictures or make a grand statement. She simply showed up at the shelter. She talked to the people who knew Garrison outside the family. She put her grief into motion, into action. And in doing so, she's rewriting the narrative, not just for herself, but for her son. Because here's the truth: fans don't want more drama. They want healing. They want honesty. And most of all, they want Garrison to be remembered with dignity. Not as a lost boy, not as a troubled son, but as a gentle, animal-loving young man who tried his best in a complicated world. And moving forward, that's the lens through which many will watch this show. Not with blind loyalty, not with casual detachment, but with eyes wide open, with a demand for truth, for respect, and for a kind of accountability that goes far beyond entertainment. In the next and final act, we'll explore what this all means for Sister Wives going forward, how the show might need to change, and whether it even can recover from something so real, so painful, and so publicly mishandled. Because once a story touches real grief, you can't edit your way back to normal. And now we're left with the question that no one on the show wants to answer out loud. Where does Sister Wives even go from here? How do you come back from something this heartbreaking, this real? Because this isn't just family tension anymore. This isn't a disagreement about holiday schedules or who didn't call whom on a birthday. This is a son gone far too soon, a mother grieving, and a community of viewers who now see the cracks in the story that TLC's been trying to tell for years. The truth is, this tragedy changed the energy around the entire show. Before, fans were drawn in by the dysfunction, sure, but also by the dynamics. The shifting marriages, the drama. It felt messy, but in a way that was still safe to watch. Now, it feels too close, too personal, and maybe even too painful. Because now we know what was really going on beneath the surface in some of those episodes. All those scenes of Garrison pushing back. That wasn't just a rebellious young adult. That was someone trying to be heard, trying to live life on his own terms while still begging for connection with his father. He was standing his ground, not out of spite, but because he wanted boundaries and respect. And when he didn't get it, he distanced himself. But even that didn't protect him in the end. And the show's current season, season 19, feels like it's walking on a tightrope it never prepared for. There's grief hanging over every scene now, whether the show acknowledges it or not. Every time someone mentions Garrison, you feel the tension in the air. You can almost sense the producers hesitating. How much should they show? What can they include without crossing the line? And honestly, many viewers feel like they already crossed it. There's been a lot of discussion about how TLC is handling this. Some fans are furious, saying the network is using Garrison's death for shock value. Others are more forgiving, hoping that by showing Janelle's grief, they're at least offering some kind of tribute. But even then, the question remains, who is in control of this narrative now? Is it Janelle, or is it still a production team trying to hit episode counts and build climaxes? And let's be real, this show has always relied on emotional tension to drive storylines. But grief like this isn't a storyline. It's not a subplot. It's someone's real, ongoing pain. It doesn't follow a neat arc. It doesn't resolve by the season finale. So what happens next? Can Sister Wives continue without addressing the emotional elephant in the room? Can it really go on as if things are the same when we all know they're not? Some fans think the show has run its course, that this should be the final season. Not because they don't care anymore, but because they care too much. Because watching Janelle grieve while others seem disconnected or defensive is just too hard to witness. Because now that Garrison is gone, it feels wrong to keep watching as if he was just another character. And yet, others hope something good might still come from this. That maybe, just maybe, the show can become something different. Something more real, less performative, less polished. Something that shows what grief actually looks like, what it does to a family, how it changes people. If anything, the one thing viewers are demanding now is accountability. They want to hear Kody speak honestly about his relationship with his sons, not just in sound bites, not in defensive rants, but with real humility. They want Robyn to stop centering herself in the narrative and show some genuine reflection. They want Mary and Christine, who've also experienced so much loss in their own ways, to speak up with truth and clarity, not just vague platitudes. But most of all, they want Garrison to be honored in a way that feels real, not through dramatic confessionals, not through edited flashbacks, but through continued acts of kindness, through people talking about who he was outside the show, the cat rescuer, the gentle soul, the guy who made people laugh and quietly helped others without expecting anything back. That's why the Flagstaff Animal Shelter tribute meant so much to so many. It was simple, heartfelt, real. It didn't need music or narration, just the truth that this young man loved animals and that his legacy lives on in every senior cat that gets adopted in his name. And that's something the show can never script. That's the kind of legacy no network can create or control. That belongs to Janelle. That belongs to the fans who saw the truth behind the edits. That belongs to everyone who has ever loved someone silently battling pain. For a long time, Sister Wives sold the idea of unity, of families sticking together through anything. And for a while, that's what fans wanted to believe. But now people see the truth, that sometimes the loudest voice in the room isn't the wisest, that sometimes the ones who quietly show up, like Janelle, are the ones holding everything together. So maybe this is the end of the sister wives we once knew. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's time for a different kind of story. One that doesn't shy away from the hard parts. One that doesn't edit around grief. One that acknowledges that love doesn't always look like what we expect. As for Garrison, his story shouldn't end in sadness. Yes, the loss is overwhelming. Yes, the grief is raw. But his life had meaning. And the people who knew him, truly knew him, are making sure of that. Janelle is carrying his light forward. The animal shelter continues his mission, and fans everywhere are remembering him for who he really was. Not just as a cast member, but as for Garrison, his story shouldn't end in sadness. Yes, the loss is overwhelming. Yes, the grief is raw. But his life had meaning, and the people who knew him, truly knew him, are making sure of that. Janelle is carrying his light forward. The animal shelter continues his mission, and fans everywhere are remembering him for who he really was, not just as a cast member, but as a son, a brother, and a beautiful soul. And I think that's what we hold on to. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this conversation. If you felt something while hearing this, if you cried, or even if you just paused to think, please consider subscribing to TLC's Sister Wives Tales. I'm Sophia, and this is a space where we talk about the real stories behind the show. Drop a comment below. What do you think the show should do now? Should it continue? Should it take a break? I want to hear your thoughts, because this isn't just my channel, it's our community. And for Garrison, we see you. We remember. We honor you. And before I close, I just want to say this. Not as a narrator, not as someone covering reality TV, but as a human being who has watched this family for years, who's laughed at their chaos, sighed through their arguments, and cried more than once at the pain that seeps between the lines. This one hurts. It's not just about sister wives anymore. It's not about who divorced who or which house someone built. It's about something deeper, something sacred, a mother's love, a son's quiet strength, and the pieces of someone's life that can't ever be edited into a clean storyline. If you're still watching this show, still holding space for Janelle and her children, still sitting with the complicated grief that's now stitched into every frame, then you know. You feel it. We're not just viewers anymore, we're witnesses. So let's not forget what Garrison stood for. Not the headlines, not the drama, but the good, the gentle, the unnoticed moments where he made someone or some animal feel safe. That's the legacy that matters. That's the legacy we carry forward. I'm Sophia. This is TLC's Sister Wives Tales. And thank you for being here, truly, for showing up, for listening, and for remembering. If this touched you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And please, if you or someone you love is struggling, reach out. Because behind every storyline, every smile, every silence, someone might be holding on by just a thread. We're all in this life together. Let's not forget to be kind, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other